about all the time, the Folding Ideas one. Sure, we'll watch the Folding Ideas one then. This is an 8-year-old video from Folding Ideas. The channel changed dramatically over the course of that 8 years, obviously, but I think that this is, I mean, according to Little Bear, pretty good analysis of
Gamergate's
Gamergate.
base assumptions create a worldview that enables and justifies harassment and terrorism. This is what we're going to talk about, but it's going to be a long road because I want to run through the whole process from start to finish. And it gives us a great reason to talk about critical tools. This is actually a subject that I've wanted to bring up more often for a long time, pretty much since the show started, but I've never really gotten around to it. I mean, it's been there in bits and pieces, but let's really crack into one because this is a perfect time. Let's talk about base assumptions. Base assumptions are the things that you, I, everyone takes for granted about the world. They are the things that default to yes or no until proven otherwise. These are the things that we believe are just the way things are. In fact, even more than that, they're often the things that we don't even consciously believe because they're frequently things we're completely oblivious to. They're invisible, unquestioned, part of the background. Believing is active. You've encountered something or been taught something and thought about it, and yes, you think that's how things work. Base assumptions, however, are typically passive. They're just there as the rules that everything else is built on.
And that's precisely why, in a society that is right-wing, a white supremacist society, a society that's fundamentals are white supremacist inherently, is always going to have a lot of social conditioning, a lot of social learning that factors these sorts of beliefs. That's why I always tell people in this community, a bunch of leftists who are very woke and very angry all the fucking time, to be a little bit more forgiving of people that engage in like statements that are frustrating, like microaggressions or things like that. As long as they are willing and able and demonstrating that they're interested in learning and changing their behavior, you should be understanding of people's reactionary beliefs, because that takes a long fucking time to get over, and you have to be compassionate. You have to lead with empathy. That's why I always repeat Michael Jamal Brooks, rest in power, his statement, you know, be kind to people, be ruthless to systems, right?
They are one of the major things that form what we consider to be normal. Alright, I know a bunch of you are thinking, well, what is normal? Maybe the crazy people are normal and the normal people are the crazy ones. And that's good. I've wondered the same thing myself in the past.
By the way, speaking of the Sinead O'Connor chatter that was in here yesterday, wanting me to constantly fucking watch videos and clips of Sinead O'Connor, a wonderful statement from her was, it is no representation of sanity to be well-adjusted to a violent society. I paraphrased it. I messed it up a little bit, but you know, she's right. It is not sanity to be well-adjusted to an insane society, right? Here, I'll use the actual statement that she said instead of the, it is no measure of health to be well-adjusted to a profoundly sick society. That's what she said. One of her, in my opinion, greatest quotes of all time. It is no measure of health to be well-adjusted to a profoundly sick society.
It's wrong for a variety of ontological reasons, but it's a good starting point because it's being critical about assumptions that drive daily life, recognizing that many things in society are more or less arbitrary constructs. They may exist for a reason, but those reasons aren't natural law. Take traffic lights, for example. Why are they red, yellow, and green? Why not blue, orange, and hyperviolet? Turns out the answer is pretty typical. Back in the 1800s, the railway industry started using those colors and they just kind of stuck. Red already has a history as a warning signal, green was chosen because it looks different from red, and yellow because it looks different from the other two. Well, as long as you aren't colorblind, that is. Right there, we've hit a base assumption. The chosen colors assume you aren't colorblind. So there are reasons underpinning the choice of traffic light colors. There is a logic there, but that logic is arbitrary. Traffic light color isn't dictated by the force of gravity or the speed of light or some other immutable fact. It is a decision that someone made over a century ago that stuck because traffic rules.
I can't see the number. L, imagine being colorblind. You're weak. You're weak, chatter. Just kidding. I'm joking.
Need to be more or less standardized so that drivers know what to expect of others and what others expect of them in order to minimize how often they ram into one another. So that's a tiny example that has nothing to do with narrative, but it's a good demonstration of how something becomes just the way things are. Let's apply the same to narrative. First things first, we need to talk vocabulary. Kitchen vocabulary. Today's kitchen vocabulary word is text. Now, in colloquial use,
Oh my God. Oh God. I love bread tubers. They were doing the battles in the trenches, but goddamn, they take a long ass time to get to the fucking point. Get to the point, Folding Ideas. I love you. I love you so much. You do phenomenal work even to this day. Okay? And his channel is greatly improved, except it has gotten longer and longer. He folds the fucking ideas so goddamn hard, like it's Nihon steel, dude. Okay? I'm talking Japanese katanas, baby. He's folding 10,000 times over to make sure that this motherfucker, oh my God. Oh my God. Okay, here. You know what? Fuck it. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it justice. We're gonna talk about text. Okay, we're gonna talk about text. I'm gonna let him cook. I'm being disrespectful to the guy who's making phenomenal work here. Okay.
today's kitchen vocabulary word is text. Now, in colloquial use, text refers to the printed word, but here we're going to be using it to refer to any cultural work taken as a whole. So a book, the whole book, is a text, as is a video game or a movie or a song or an album or a TV show or a video on the internet. The text of a book includes the, text and any pictures that happen to be included, while the text of a movie includes the dialogue, cinematography, color palette, motion, editing, pacing, and really any other form of language that the movie uses to convey.
Yeah, video essays go into the beginning of the earth to explain a concept is literally
Meaning,
what's happening here.
The text of a
It's so funny because his videos are such bangers. Okay. I just want to show you this. Okay. I want to show you this much. This is all I'm gonna say. Okay. The future is dead. Mall Decentraland and the metaverse. Where's his other video? The famous one that he made. Wasn't it Folding Ideas that did the crypto one that was like 8 hours long? Did I skip it? Did I pass it? Like, he now makes even longer videos. Okay. It was at the top. This is financial advice. 2 hours and 31 minutes long. He's so good. And he is so, let me tell you something. He's so good. The line goes up. The problem with NFTs, 2 hours and 18 minutes long. This is financial advice. He's so good. He makes videos for people that don't understand the concept at all. And he does such a great job of like explaining everything. And I love him for it. He is the GOAT. Okay. He is the GOAT. It's just really funny because like even in this 20-minute video, he's cooking it so goddamn slow, dude.
video game includes all of that, plus the gameplay itself and the Ludo narrative created by the same. Because the principles and theories that we're going to be talking about apply more or less uniformly to all of these different media, we're going to be using the word text to refer to all of them at the same time. In order to evaluate the base assumptions of a text, it can be helpful to anthropomorphize the text. Think about it as though it were a person and figure out what its priorities and beliefs would be if you could talk to it. This is useful as a device because it can help separate what exists in the text from assumptions about the motives of the people who made the text. That's valuable because while authorial intent can be insightful or interesting, in the end only audience remains, and it's entirely possible for well-meaning people to create problematic text through accident, inattention, or carelessness. I'm picking out an example that I touched on ever so briefly before in my longer rundown of Man of Steel. How does Man of Steel feel about the military?
This council has been disbanded.
Military authority in Man of Steel always goes unquestioned. When Zod launches a coup attempt, no one criticizes his right to authority. He is never stripped of rank, he is never accused of dereliction of the ethics and morals of his position, and he is never challenged for his claim to leadership. Something very, very important to remember before we go any further with this is that every text is political by nature.
That was the reason why he did the first 5 minutes. He's proving it, okay? It's proof. He's basically showing you proof as to why all text, this is the basis of media literacy, okay? It's basic political commentary. It's basic analysis. He's just describing, he came to the fucking conclusion already. He knows what the conclusion is. He's just proving it, okay? That's it. He's saying all text is political, which is correct. Politics is unavoidable, okay? It is all around us. Politics impacts your life, even if you don't believe it. As a matter of fact, being apolitical is an expressly political thing. Okay? It shows so much about your existence. It means that you are not directly harmed by the ongoing politics. For example, okay, you might have been an apolitical person in the Jim Crow South, right? But black people, on the other hand, did not have the opportunity to be apolitical in the Jim Crow South, right? Because their existence was political. Where they could go, their freedom of movement was restricted. Their lives were in danger by lynch mobs, right? That's it. So even believing the absence even believing that there is not politics happening all around you is a political thing. It is impossible to avoid. Okay? Dude who's obsessed with politics sees it everywhere. Is anyone surprised by this? Yes, it's everywhere, but you don't have to obsess over it so much that you intentionally go out of your way to put it into everything instead of coming out naturally. Oh, my beautiful boy, my sweet child. Do you not understand the point that we're making here? Which is that it does not matter. This is the entire basis behind people not recognizing that Call of Duty, for example, is a political franchise and thinking that Call of Duty with a black woman is, right? People that do not have this foundational understanding, okay, oftentimes children or people with childlike brains will say, oh, that's political. I don't like that. Get the politics out of my video games. Okay? Except, given that video games are another medium for art, it is impossible for video games not to have politics in them. Okay? Now, you can let that bother you. You can get angry at it. I certainly do not, right? As you guys know, I famously tell people, enjoy things. It's okay. You can consume stuff. It doesn't say everything about, it's not a political act inherently to analyze a form of art or enjoy it, okay? It doesn't. Don't be unbearable and boring and annoying and constantly fucking finger wag at people for enjoying shit, for example.
As creators and audience, we all exist in a political context. It is inescapable. Even an attempt at creating something apolitical is ultimately political because it is a priori a rejection of the political. Man of Steel, which has some decidedly political motives of its own, is at the very basic level an expensive consumer entertainment product created in a capitalist system. It cannot help but reflect that system, push and pull off of it, any more than a swimmer in a pool can avoid disturbing the water.
It's great. That's great. That's a great take. He's right. Because our politics, which is baked into, of course, the culture that we consume, is, of course, reflective of the material conditions. That's it. That's it. Now, you can get mad at that. Or you can look at it and go, dude, why are you getting mad at this? Just enjoy it.
Is a massive...
If you do not interfere in politics, politics will eventually interfere in your life. Vladimir Lenin.
Subject of its own. If you want to go deeper, then you should start by watching Slavoj Žižek's documentary, A Pervert's Guide to Ideology. It's
Great.
on Netflix.
We've watched it before.
Back to Man of Steel.
Awesome.
This uncritical opinion of military authority is also reflected in the human elements of the film and drifts from underlying assumption up to the surface. Superman explicitly condescends himself before the military. Yes, it's an ineffectual prostration, but that's basically the textbook definition of a symbolic act. It's a token effort, a small throwaway that represents something much larger. In that act, he legitimizes their authority. The underlying assumption at play is that the military is a legitimate locus of power, and that we, as the citizenry, should defer to that power. It doesn't say as such, but that is the world that the text builds. That is Man of Steel's normal. Understanding that normal, being able to pull it out and look at it, is an invaluable skill in communications, opening up new and interesting meanings and messages, bridging gaps between cultures that may seem to be at odds, revealing conflicts that were previously invisible, and paving the way for empathy and understanding. Now,
the assumption is that Superman isn't real. No, the point there the message there that the movie is showing you is that Superman, which is God, right, will still bow down and honor the social construct that man has created, the military, the might of the military. That's what he's saying. That is what they're showing you without telling you, basically.
Now we can talk about Gamergate. There are some things that we need to say about Gamergate first. This is not a new phenomenon. These ideas and beliefs did not spring up in August 2014 with Gamergate any more than Gigi's most odious ideologues or the women that they target. They were already here. In this regard, Gamergate's core assumptions are not unique, but are reflective of attitudes and opinions within society at large, attitudes that view the status quo as the natural, inevitable result of apolitical forces. Davis Aridi, Jordan Owen, John Bain, Phil Mason, Dean Esme, Paul Elam, Jason Polera, the denizens of 4chan, they all...
I have no idea who any of these people are, and I think it was because at this stage in my life, I was not playing a lot of video games, and because I was getting pussy. I'll like, it's reductive to explain it as such, but that literally is what was going on. You know what I mean?
Already had an axe to grind. Gamergate is nothing more than the new name for a long-standing resistance to the increased visibility of minority voices in society at large. If we look at Gamergate as a text, look at their message boards, their IRC channels, their blog posts.
You still don't play a lot of video game? Bitch, I've logged in 40 hours on Infinite Wealth 8 over the course of the past 2 weeks. Okay? No, I play a lot of video games. I just don't do it on camera. So then you think I don't play video games, which is ironic because you fucking play video games off camera every day and think you're a gamer. If you are a gamer, then so am I.
YouTube videos, claims, priorities, and target selection, we can drill down to the following base assumptions about the world, the Gamergate normal. 1. There are no real problems with inclusion or representation in gaming. 2. Any problems that do exist don't matter because that's just market economics appealing to the majority of players. 3. The status quo, as they perceive it through the lens of assumptions 1 and 2, is a natural state, thus any disruption is inherently artificial. This is the bedrock of the movement's ideology. The core here is that from their point of view, the criticisms directed at video games and the community are fundamentally unnecessary, that nothing is wrong with the way things are, and that any problems are the unavoidable result of natural processes. This is what drives the vitriol against Anita Sarkeesian, Zoe Quinn, Brianna Wu, and others. They are seen as pretenders, if not invaders.
It's so funny because how old this video is, like a lot has changed, right? In the world, like some of the guys that he showed, I think are still up to their old shit. Some of them, I think Total Biscuit died, right? And was maybe not like pro Gamergate after. And others are known as like out and about white supremacists or their careers have ended, right? Whereas Brianna Wu is now famously trying to desperately do pro-Israel propaganda on Twitter and is almost perfectly aligned with the same Gamergaters that originally made her life a living hell. So that's what happens in 10 fucking years, by the way. A lot changes in 10 years. So if you are unchanged from the events that unfolded 10 fucking years ago and you still hold resentment towards any of these fucking people and not the new kind of resentment that you would hold towards Brianna Wu for thinking that like the parting of the Red Sea was a real event, a real historical event, and not just something that was written in scripture, then, you know, you might be a little brain broken. It is unhealthy to hold this level of resentment towards someone like Anita Sarkeesian or Zoe Quinn, or even Brianna Wu for Gamergate related shit. You know what I mean? You didn't change too much. You just got better. Yes, because I think my foundations are solid. That is the reason why I did not change that much over the course of this period of time. But no, I used to make transphobic jokes and like significantly more misogynistic jokes back then. That has changed. So I have changed a little bit. I've changed in my politics for sure. I became someone who is an advocate for trans people in this 10-year process, right? Like, if you haven't changed over the course of 10 years, like in any meaningful way, you are not well receptive of criticism. I am very well receptive of criticism if it's made in good faith. It's not criticism when someone comes in here and says like, your dad had a trust fund and is a billionaire, and also you have a big house, and that is in contest with your personal beliefs that I believe are hypocritical. That's not criticism. That's your opinion that is just wrong, and it's filled to the brim with false information that you've been primed into believing, and a lot of false assertions. That's the difference. If you actually do have good criticism, I welcome that. Okay? If you have good constructive criticism, I welcome that. I've changed the way that I do commentary over the course of many, many years, as a matter of fact. But a lot of the accountability politics, online, which is literally what we are covering currently. Gamergate is the exact same thing. People thinking like we are doing accountability by getting angry at the wrong shit. A lot of it is just like cooked up, manufactured outrage, right? That's it.
Their criticism as wholly out of place, unnecessary, and artificial. Gamergate actively seeks to have these voices silenced and expelled from the industry. This perception that their natural state of normal is being invaded feeds and internally justifies the use of militaristic rhetoric, constant references to being at war, and organizing under names such as Operation Vox Populi and the hilariously named Operation Shills of Silicon Valley.
One of the funniest parts about this is like the way that a lot of these people presented themselves as though they were engaging in like a righteous conquest, like a holy war. And all they were doing is like, it is a very Ted Kaczynski moment, right? Like Ted Kaczynski, now a figure of reverence for some fucking weird reason, had a litany of beliefs that were idiotic, okay? And also his actions were also equally dumb. What did he do? In order to disrupt the way, in order to pull society back into anarcho-primitivism, he went and he blew up the fingers of like Radio Shack employees, okay? And a couple fucking grad students. You think that is like, you think that was actually moving the needle? You think that was even protest to begin with? Like, do you think that was a solid protest to begin with? It was very, very fucking stupid, obviously. And a parallel exists here as well, which is that a lot of these guys who are angry at dumb shit, right? Video games being ruined by women, turned around and used that animosity and anger that they had to do this, what they perceived righteous conquest, this holy war against like a bunch of random people. Crazy misrepresentation of Uncle Ted's revolutionary action. Yeah, dude. It's like thinking that you're doing revolutionary action by watching 3 minutes of ads at the top of the fucking hour, okay? You're not. Subscribe and no longer see those ads. Dummy. Here's a 3-minute ad break now.
The use of harassment and abuse tactics, such as dogpiling, sea lioning, gish galloping, and gaslighting, are seen as acceptable means justified by the ends, wherein invaders are purged and the natural state of normal is restored. The use of terror tactics, such as death threats, doxing, hacking, and the tacit threat of mobbing, while engaged in by the minority, creates an environment of fear that all members enjoy the privilege of, whether they engage in them or not.
Thank you, Raging Hoppa, for the 5 gifted, and thank you, 34 MKD 50 with the 50 gifted subs.
I'm going to restate that just because of how important it has been in the course of the last few months. The use of terror tactics, even if only by a minority, has created an environment of fear that all members enjoy the privilege of. When people are unwilling to engage because they are afraid that they'll be next, that their websites will be attacked, that their information will be stolen, that their employees...
Yes, it's harassment. This community knows it. You literally experience it on a regular basis by people who will try to make you out to be like a bad person. Try to ruin your day in the simplest terms possible. Why? Because you watch someone like myself. It's the same principle behind like going after anyone and everyone that is associated with me. Like people do this and they think they're engaging in a righteous conquest for vengeance to like destroy or to expose the hypocrisies that I have, right? The hypocrisies that undermine my worldview. So that's what it is. It's just to make things more toxic and shitty for you, because you watch the HasanAbi broadcast in the simplest terms. Just like, oh, are you someone who wants games to be woke, or are you saying games aren't woke enough? Then I'm going to come after you. I'm going to engage in a dogpiling campaign. I'm going to lie about you. I'm going to try to harm you in some way. I'm going to try to undermine you. I'm going to try to make it seem like you believe things that you don't actually believe. These are this is just someone said gamified harassment. Exactly. This is just what it is. And the express purpose, the ultimate purpose of it is to get you to stop. Right? That's all it is.
Employers will be harassed that they'll have child pornography tweeted at them or sent to their email. All members benefit from that person's silence, even if they were not personally responsible for the harassment. One of the major ways that Gamergate enables harassment is through its anonymous swarm mentality. Gamergate at every turn claims decentralization. Like being attacked by a swarm of bees, rarely does any one person inflict a particularly grievous wound, each individual being able to dispute their own involvement or cite the timidity of their contribution. This allows for perpetual deflection of real harms because it is difficult to summarize the cumulative impact of hundreds of messages implying you are a liar or obnoxiously asking for proof of well-proven facts. Additionally, the swarm is exploited by constantly claiming that anything particularly bad is not the work of a true gamergator. This is, of course, a fallacy, as by definition, a swarm has no...
So, remember, they were doing this with the... this ties back. The reason why we're covering this story is because of Sweet Baby Inc., right? And a lot of the former gamergators or newer gamergators, I guess, are currently in the process of doing this to a company that engages in like narrative design, claiming that they're making video games woke and therefore shitty. Obviously, as we covered it yesterday, turns out Sweet Baby Inc. works with pretty much every fucking company. And therefore, every game that you enjoy and games that you didn't enjoy, for example, both have been touched by Sweet Baby Inc. Okay? Now, if you present this in a way where it's like all the games that you didn't enjoy were made by Sweet Baby Inc. or changed in some way, then yes, it's a wonderful narrative that you can engage in to get a lot of people to enact righteous vengeance. How do you enact that righteous vengeance? By making people feel fucking miserable, by tweeting at them, by telling them, by repeating falsehoods, by claiming that they're hypocritical, by doing anything and everything you can, scouring their tweets, finding older tweets that are inconsistent, or finding older tweets that you believe will invoke a lot of anger out of other people, including like the person who wrote this article, who apparently said something like, you can't be racist to white people. That's a good one. That gets a lot of people going online, especially some of the most extremely online people will get very mad at that because they don't want to examine the statement or the nuances of such a statement and just leave it hanging as like, no, that's actually just racist. Fuck you. So it never really went away. It's just basically a coordinated harassment effort to try and make people feel miserable, because you probably are miserable. People that do this kind of thing are usually miserable, devoid of politics, by the way, because leftists do it too. Let's be real. As a matter of fact, during the Gamergate era, regardless of the harassment campaigns that were being directed by right-wing reactionaries, people oftentimes thought it was only SJWs that were engaging in this sort of thing. They very clearly presented this as a bad thing and claimed that only the left was doing it, right? You're literally describing yourself. You sit at your PC all day, barfing out your opinion with zero research behind it. You're absolutely correct. Once again, I welcome anyone and everyone who thinks that I have zero research behind the statements that I'm making to actually do the research themselves. If you agree with me, you should still investigate further. Also, go and watch my YouTube videos. They actually do have the data. My editors will go in and add the actual data that I'm sourcing, even though I'm rattling off the top dome. And sometimes I might get things a little bit off, like numbers, you know what I mean? But ultimately, you are able to fact check it yourself. It's just that, unfortunately, just like the statement that you just presented here, many people don't do that. Many people's criticisms are completely devoid of any facts whatsoever. There's no disagreement with the arguments that I'm presenting. It's mostly usually just shit slinging. You did not hold me accountable. You just shit slang. That's all you did, right? Your YouTube videos are all one-sided rants of people who have no way of defending themselves because your audience is 50 times bigger. My audience is not 50 times bigger than Ben Shapiro's audience. I don't know who you are referencing that I have ever criticized that is like 50 times smaller than me. That's another factually incorrect statement that's motivated by a lot of anger and resentment. That's it. You're doing the thing that you're basically claiming I'm doing, right? What arguments are you presenting? You literally went sarcastic on me and pretended to be a righty because you know you were two-faced and I called you out on it? Wait, what? I'm so confused as to what you're... Is this the older guy? This is the guy that I was making fun of earlier? What accountability have you done here? Like, you're in here, you obviously have a position, you obviously disagree with mine. What is the accountability that you've brought here, in your opinion? What is the disagreement that you have, for example, with anything that I've talked about? I'm pro-Palestine. Are you anti-Palestine? Use this as an opportunity. You're in the spotlight. Use this as an opportunity to present something that I've done that you are frustrated with instead of angrily lashing out. This is what I mean. But many people don't do that. And they stay at, you're just a meanie bobini and I don't like you. And that's fine. You don't have to like me. That is perfectly normal. I would fucking despise someone who is talking about like making people's lives better or talking about labor all the goddamn time, who himself now is very, very comfortable. Okay? I get it. I get that. I totally understand that. Being resentful towards rich people, especially, is healthy. Okay? It's not a bad thing. It's a healthy thing. It's a healthy attitude to have. But make sure you channel your anger towards those who actually make your life worse. That's it.
No one to dictate its overall form, thus no one to say what is or is not a true gamergator. Either everything is in or everything is out. Even within the more benign aims of the movement, these underlying assumptions are present, the primary target of corruption and conspiracy accusations being women, queer folk, and their allies. Particularly insightful in this regard is Gamergate's use of code wording. Zoe Quinn, as a persistent target of harassment at the core of Gamergate, Gamergate itself being a hashtag coined by Adam Baldwin in reference to the Quinspiracy videos, was eventually given the codename Literally Who in an attempt at deflecting very true accusations that the movement largely revolved around demonizing and punishing her. It also serves as a symbolic excommunication, an ex parte declaration of Zoe as a non-person, stripping her of name and identity.
I don't care about you being comfortable. I care about you being two-faced, claiming you care about the workforce, yet literally publicly abusing hard workers. Wait, can you... No, this is really interesting. Who is a hard worker that I've publicly abused? Maybe this guy's onto something. Maybe he thinks I'm someone else. I don't know. Why are you changing topics to Palestine? I'm talking about your abuse of other people's labor. Is this all just like me watching people's videos? Is that what this comes from? You're stealing labor from people. I say it's not about how much money you have, but your relationship to how you make your money. It is, but don't worry about it. That's not what people are going to get mad at. You are stealing labor from people. Do you think I'm currently stealing Folding Ideas labor right now? This is a video that came out on August 22nd, 2015. Do you feel like this right here is not an ethical and perfectly derivative way of reacting to someone else's video? I will triple the runtime of this video in and of itself. I'm using an 8-year-old video that will breathe fire back into it potentially due to the 20,000 people that are currently watching it and will go back and rewatch it. You don't think it's ethical. Many of the YouTubers I watch, almost all of them actually now that I watch, will think it is perfectly fine and they welcome it. You are angry on behalf of people, regardless of what their own personal opinions are on the matter. You've probably watched other YouTubers who I have never watched or have apologized for watching in the past, probably around 2 to 4 years ago. I remember back then, I certainly did watch some people's YouTube videos, or at least one guy's videos that got very mad at me. I apologized to them immediately and said I will never watch their videos ever again. And yet that still snowballed into something much larger. I do not care what they think. If they think it's ethical, they're being idiots and self-sabotaging. I can be a coal-worker who gets exploited every day, yet I'm happy. Does that mean I'm any less exploited? If you are comparing coal miners to YouTubers, okay, whose primary mode of making money, generating revenue, is by getting their YouTube videos in front of a larger audience and then having those people go back to their audience. Like when you're making a video, I make YouTube videos as well. I don't know if you knew this or not. I started off making videos for YouTube specifically, so I do have a understanding of how this stuff works. But if you're making that comparison, you're a little lost, because a coal miner that gets exploited is not going to generate more revenue due to someone exploiting them. Okay, it's not a positive relationship. That's the reason why almost all of the YouTubers that you would ask directly would probably say that they do enjoy when people watch their videos. Ted Nivison is a great example of this. Last night I watched my friend Boy Boy's video. Boy, I did a thing, and True Geordies broke into a CIA facility in Australia. They literally sat in the chat, watched me watch their video. This is something that they enjoy personally, something that they benefit from, but also something that they perfectly are comfortable with. Now, there's also videos of people that I do watch that I don't know personally, right? Especially when I'm disagreeing with them. That is perfectly fair and perfectly proper. I wish you weren't such a pussy about this stuff. Wish you had the balls to discuss, to have a proper discussion with someone through Discord. Notice how this entire conversation turned into an unproductive one. I thought you had a valid criticism. I tried to explain it. I've already told you that I do not care about the individual person's consent. It doesn't matter. If you are making a false comparison between a coal miner and a YouTuber, you've already lost the plot. This is a bad argument that you presented. And also on top of that, you said it doesn't matter. You are engaging in an unethical act. Regardless, it's unethical to you. There is no harm being conducted. Okay? For example, what you're doing is this. I'm going to try to give you an analogy here. Okay? Two people are engaging in an act of consensual sex. Okay? Both parties have consented. You, from the sidelines, is saying, I do not consent. I do not consent to this consensual ethical act of sexual intercourse where both parties are deriving pleasure out of it, so it should not be done. You are a Karen in simplest terms. You are smarmy and annoying for someone else who is already enjoying the process. This is the issue. There is no way that you can debate with someone who personally turns around and says, I'm sorry, although both parties have consented, I do not consent to them consenting. That's it. I'm not beating around the bush. I'm trying to explain how you are wrong, but you are refusing to understand it. Possibly because sex was the worst analogy I could have used. I assume that if you are in here getting this fucking upset at something, and saying that you don't care about two people's consent in this regard, it's still exploitation. Well, then you're probably not sexing at all. You're probably not getting a lot of that. No, your argument is flawed. Your example does not harm anybody. While you're harming people, even if you get the individual's consent, I am not harming a person if I'm getting their consent. You are wrong. It is your assessment. You're in the cuck chair and you're mad. Do you not understand this? There is no difference between you getting mad at this and you getting mad at video game companies marketing by getting Twitch streamers to play their video games. Do you understand? I have literally done ad campaigns for a Hulu show by watching their trailer. Obviously, they see that there is good value in doing such a thing. You can't assume guilt when both parties have consented and claim that there is still harm being conducted when you cannot personally show the harm. In order for there to be harm, and there can be, right? In order for there to be harm, you have to be able to show the harm. I'll gladly go into Discord with you and explain it to you so we can come to an agreement. I understand that you believe my argument to be disingenuous, but you claim to be a supporter of the workforce. You cannot possibly think what you're doing is right. Oh my God. Brother, I want to keep talking about Gamergate. Maybe I'll guest star you in a little bit, okay? I will. You want it really bad, I'll give you the smoke. But we're going to keep talking about Gamergate right now because there was a larger conversation that we were having and you're derailing it with 20,000 people watching currently. Okay? Let's continue.
However, as additional targets accrued, the codename was expanded to include dehumanize and expel others, barcoding each additional target as LW1, LW2, LW3, and so forth. While no formal list was kept, there were at 1.7 people codenamed as literally who, all women. This list eventually collapsed at the time of publication, having been reduced to LW1 through 3, Zoe Quinn, Anita Sarkeesian, and Brianna Wu. The perception, the base assumption is that these women, none of whom are technically journalists, represent the invasion into the cultural space, an invasion of gender, race, sexuality, and class issues, politics, and awareness. They couch this idea in conspiratorial tones, assembling lists of supposed collaborators and drawing out complex webs of accusations implying that these minorities are all outsiders looking to hijack games as a platform for political ends. This is, of course, all utter nonsense. Women, queer folk, trans folk, racial, ethnic, religious, and political minorities have been playing games all along. They have been here all along. They did not, as 4chan summarized with this image, suddenly start playing games in 2007.
Yeah, this is basically the resentment perfectly described by the people that were engaging in these campaigns. A history of women in video games throughout the years. Lol, look at these losers in his video games. All of a sudden, why won't anyone give me attention? The cake is a lie. XD, XD, XD. Girls can play games too, you know. I'm a girl gamer. Girls are just as good as guys, pretty much. Video games are sexist. Video games must cater to our needs. A man killed me in a game. I was practically raped. So, like, their anger and their resentment stems from the fact that they believe that none of these girls ever fucking played video games at all. It is that stupid. It is that stupid and it is that childish. Now, of course, a lot of the childish stupidity at the time was being repeated by people who were in their early 20s. Maybe they were angry at the world. Maybe they carried a lot of resentment. Maybe they had a sense of entitlement that did not match the world that they lived in. And they were angrily lashing out at things that they felt represented the societal constructs that violated them. Okay? So, obviously, we can look back at this 10 years in the future and laugh at how stupid it is. But the reason why I'm showing you this is because it was stupid back then, but it is unacceptable now to carry on this resentment. It shows me that you have not grown. You are desperate at, keeping yourself preoccupied with this anger. It is not healthy for you.
Also, as we've already discussed, games are and were already political in nature because all culture is unavoidably political. What they see as an invasion is little more than the players who have been present all along finding a voice in the market to discuss politics that were already there. This fact, along with the core assumption...
But Hasan, you were in favor of Gamergate? No, I was not. What? So today, as you supported Gamergate, It was opening the door to force perspective to intellectuals before you did a mass ban wave against Gamergate, Hasan. Okay, dude, I can't argue against your delusions here. I don't know what the fuck you're saying.
Creates an interesting contradiction in the companion hashtag #NotYourShield. Not Your Shield was conceived of as an effort at creating a controlled counter-narrative, something that's known as culture jamming. Originally an astroturfing campaign creating the illusion of a grassroots movement, the hashtag gained traction beyond channers and sock puppets. The idea is that by having minority allies, the ideological force of Gamergate would be able to deflect criticisms of their bigotry by pointing to supporters and saying, "How can I be racist if my best friend is black?" You may notice that this is what is often called using someone as a shield. Before we can go deeper into the issue, we need to discuss more of Gigi's ideological roots. Gamergate spawned from the 4chan boards V and Poll, and of particular relevance to us is the gender constructs held by those spaces expressed with the mimetic idea of there are no girls on the internet, tits or GTFO. Tits or GTFO is an enforcement mechanism protecting the status quo. The idea, as explained in a particularly popular post, is that due to the anonymous nature of most interactions over the internet, no one will know if you're a woman unless you specifically mention it. Moreover,
if I can pontificate a bit for your edification, one of the rules of the internet is there are no girls on the internet. This rule does not mean what you think it means. In real life, people like you for being a girl. They want to fuck you, so they pay attention to you and they pretend. Dude, I can smell this dude from 10 years ago writing this shit. Okay? God damn. It's so sad. And in some ways, we haven't changed at all. And in many others, we've gotten worse because this level of commentary specifically existed on message boards like 4chan Poll, and now it's all over fucking Twitter. It is the norm, okay? And even increasingly more insane. It doesn't just stay with this. It turns into like the pedophile cabal. The pedophile cabal is trafficking children.
Or even if you claim you're a woman, you have to prove it, hence tits or GTFO. While 4chan interprets this as everyone is anonymous, a more accurate reading is everyone is default until proven otherwise. By retaining anonymity, you enjoy the protections inherent to membership in the majority. This is obviously of some appeal to individuals who are otherwise marginalized. The only cost is the annihilation of one's own identity, or at least a willingness to subsume those aspects that are out of harmony with the Gamergate normal. Gamergate's ideal woman is one who is passive, conventionally attractive, and generally voiceless. This is actually a provable point because Gamergate has provided us with their ideal woman in the form of mascot Vivian James. Really, this is opening up a rabbit hole all its own. I could go on for hours about the semiotics of this character and how she's represented in the myriad comics that have been made featuring her, but the crux of it is that she's...
This is also the other like incredibly sad part about it is that like 4chan will then create like a fake person that they fantasize about. God, it just like, I think a lot of this can be cast aside by, I don't think you like women. That's number one. And I don't think you like video games in general. And yet you spend all of your time shitting on both of these concepts.
She's an expression of the ideal emergent from the base assumptions of their worldview. Their ideal woman is one who never imposes herself or her identity into the shared space. If she were on the other end of a game, you'd never even know she wasn't a dude. This ties directly into conflicts that arose repeatedly within the Not Your Shield hashtag, as Gamergate ideologues turned on and excommunicated individuals who criticized sexism, homophobia, transphobia, and racism within the movement. The message was loud and clear. Minorities are welcome as long as they leave their identity at the door. The perception of diversity is incredibly valuable specifically because it could function as a shield to jam criticism, but the exercising of that diversity still had to conform with the base assumptions. Nothing is wrong with the way things are. To insist otherwise is to become an invader. Now to go deeper into that, why is it so important for Anita Sarkeesian et al. To be invaders? The reason is in assumption number 2. Any problems in the industry are the natural result of market forces. Much of Gamergate has revolved around game reviews and the content therein, namely the reviewer's political ideologies impacting the review. This is critical because Gamergate accepts reviews as sacred. Within their construct, the free market is the arbiter of culture. The status quo exists because the market is responding to the normal. So much of their identity as gamers is tied up in materialism. Never mind that it is a consumer demographic, an artificial construct of marketing think tanks looking to maximize user investment and retention by crafting a narrative that spotlights the customer as a unique member of an exclusive club based largely on a shared fiction. That aspect isn't considered a negative because it already conforms with their politics. The culture of gaming is a culture of ownership, and the priests of that culture are the reviewers who tell them what to buy. This is why Gamergate seeks to purge all conflicting ideologies and demographics, because the free market is their god. If Anita Sarkeesian isn't an invader, then she is a customer, just like them, and has equal right of access to the market. Games changing to include more diversity is painted as capitulating.
When Breath of the Wild goes from 9.8 to 9.7 on Metacritic, yeah. Placing this amount of emphasis on reviews is so unimaginably cucked as well. Like you're so angry. You're so personally angry for a product that you think has not gotten the proper attention or is getting too much attention. And it's just like, just enjoy it on your own. I don't understand it. Like, I genuinely don't understand why people got this fucking mad. I don't get it. Weaves are mad that Persona removed the terrible depictions of the queer community. Yeah. I mean, I do get it. It's just anger and resentment and shit that's going wrong in your personal life. And instead of holding yourself accountable and trying to really re-examine what has gone wrong and try to make it right, you just angrily lash out at the world. Which is ironic because Jordan Peterson has talked about this specifically as it pertains to the left. So they love Jordan Peterson when he says that about the left without actually coming to that same conclusion or recognizing that, like, maybe they also have the exact same problems. No, it's not me, it's society that's wrong. Now, of course, with respect to the left, as a leftist myself, I do recognize the structural hurdles that people get upset about. But as someone who has very consistently told chat, my community, to be fucking normal and let people enjoy things, there are even instances where liberals personally will focus their attention on something that is seemingly tangible, and yet all of that energy is being being focused on some dumb shit that doesn't change anyone's lives at all. Movies, video games, and the like.
To outsiders because it otherwise means that the market is simply catering to new customers. The reviewers who disagree with them or hold alternate views on politics must be invaders because otherwise it means that there are other customers being served, which demolishes the Gamergate normal. A common sentiment passed around is that gaming sites that entertain discussions about misogyny, gender presentation, sexual identity, and propagandistic motives underlying partnerships with armed forces are alienating their customers.
If the games media cared about their audience, they would stop insulting us. We're just getting angrier. Maybe you're not their audience. I'm a gamer. If it's not the audience of the gaming site, who is?
The belief is
other gamers.
If I'm not their customer, then who is? Gamergate at its core does not believe that anyone outside the normal has an authentic interest in video games. This is, of course, hogwash. The outrage, the histrionics are wholly unmerited, if not entirely illegitimate. However, that anger is still felt authentically, even if it is not legitimate. Even though...
You know what's really funny, by the way? Like, I was listening to Osita Nwanebu talking on Chapo on their last episode, where they nailed this perfectly, something I talk about quite a bit as well, as you guys know, which is the anger and resentment that fuels modern conservatism, contemporary conservatism online. It is the exact same thing that Folding Ideas is talking about 8 years in the past as it pertains to Gamergate. Nothing has changed, okay? It is not about, like, It is not about changing something that materially impacts them. It's about trying to force all matter of culture to cater their needs. It's not just about being able to say certain things. It's about ensuring that when you say certain things, people actually react positively to those things. And no amount of crying is going to make people turn around and go, you know what? You are right, King. QAnon is real. Okay? Or that you're right, actually. Society should force women to fuck you. And the government should give you an enforced, mandated girlfriend. You are right. It's just not going to happen. It's not. It might happen as things are getting more and more reactionary, and we are obviously creeping towards fascism and at an ever-increasing rate and an ever-increasing accelerated rate. Maybe when we get there, but you're still going to be sad when that happens. Something that I tried to describe to incels way back in the day was always the Pareto principle, a misunderstanding of that. The idea that the top 10% of high quality men get 80% of the women, right? And then the 80 or the 90% of men are forced to duke it out for the remaining 20% of the women. What a lot of people falsely think is that if we go back to a more traditional society, right? If we go back to a more traditional society, then all of a sudden I will be able to have a girlfriend. You won't. Even if there was a Hitlerian Aryan race formation, even if you purged all the immigrants from the country, well, guess what? That same principle, if you believe it, is still going to exist. It's just going to be the top 20% of the Aryan men getting the 80% of the Aryan women. You're not fixing the problem. Because the problem is not the structural hurdles, or at least the ones you perceive as real structural hurdles. The problem is you.
Though the proximal justifications for their actions have been routinely demonstrated to be false, either because they are root misinterpretation or even total fabrication by opportunistic ideologues, the sense of hurt, of violation and marginalization, the sense that their space is being invaded, isn't fake. The motivators are not true. Most all of the people who they have accused of ethical violations have proven to be exemplars. The Byzantine conspiracies have been exposed as flim-flam, but the sense of hurt is real. And this is how Gamergate's base assumptions create a worldview that enables and justifies harassment and terrorism. It indoctrinates them to believe that they are under assault, that games don't need criticism, that criticism is unwelcome, inappropriate, misplaced, or useless. It tells them that everything is fine. It takes an authentic hurt and targets it at imaginary thieves. It takes vulnerable people with authentic pain and points them at women, at queer folk, at trans folk, and tells them they are trying to take your stuff. Because the underlying motivations are ultimately the protection of an aggressive, isolationist status quo, any support becomes support in the service of those assumptions. It is support of a worldview where the marginalized are unwelcome unless they first obliterate themselves on the altar of the normal. It is a worldview that demands conformity and will aggressively shout down, harass, abuse, and exile those who resist. This is really just scratching the surface of all of this. As I said earlier, Gamergate is really a microcosm of larger societal issues, and as such, it reaches out and touches.
Which is why it is being relitigated now and repackaged under a different format, but it's the same thinking. It's the same reactionary thinking. It's just like video games suck now, not because of capitalism, not because all developers are being sucked under the same corporate umbrella, and not because they only care about increasing their profit margins for their shareholders that will never touch a video game or never care about the medium at all, but instead because women and black women and gay people and trans people. And it's really fucking stupid, especially because there are phenomenal video games and phenomenal works of art that are actually trans positive, right? That are actually, that do feature people of color in a positive light and do a very good job with the writing of said characters. You are just not able to recognize that already happens in the video games you like and enjoy. Baldur's Gate 3 is a perfect example of this. Red Dead Redemption 2 is another great example of this. Cyberpunk is another great example of this.